Okay, I want to watch Forspoken gameplay preview. Maybe here's some commentary. I don't know, because I'm interested in Forspoken. Even though, you know, I'm not really able to play it, but I'm always interested to watch it. So yeah, let's get ready, and then after that, we jump into season anime review. All right, 1 second as well. Right, let's set everything up, and yeah. So now Forspoken preview. I guess let's look into it. See if it's actually good. I see damage numbers already.
Forspoken is a lot more fun than I expected. Thus far, there have only been a few glimpses into combat, while the marketing campaign has, in my opinion, done the game a disservice by focusing on campy dialogue instead of what Forspoken is doing best. Because what's actually here is an RPG light with a very heavy emphasis on big, bombastic combat sequences that have an optional bonus challenge for tryhards like myself in a Devil May Cry-like combat rating system. Forspoken surprised me with this focus on combat, roaming bosses to challenge, and a map filled with objectives to complete. I finished my demo excited to get better ratings in fights, and to see how all this ties into Frey's experiences in her Fish Out of Water story. The majority of this demo was focused around world exploration, controls, and combat. However, the little bit of banter we got between Cuff and Frey did have some insight as to how their dynamic will work. Cuff will give you the details about a person, place, or thing, while Frey continues playing the fish out of water role, asking a plethora of questions. Nothing seemed particularly forced or campy, which you'd think would be oozing out of every corner given how the team was lambasted on social media for their marketing campaign.
Yeah,
so
it was
I was especially glad to not find any
it looks cool, but
filler
we need to
conversations
see
as the
gameplay.
two
But now we
explored the
do.
world. Otherwise, the world we explored was quite interesting. The entirety of the plot focuses around planet Athia and an event known as the Break that has transformed animals into beasts, the dead into zombies, and introduced magic-bearing tantas onto the playing field. The latter were sent by a mysterious character known as Prav, who we don't learn much about besides some flavor text in the menus. What we do know is Prav is able to send unjust enforcers and a pitless arbiter mini-boss after Frey. This all took place during one of the 5 missions in our build, all focused on teaching you the game's core mechanics. And that's what the majority of this demo was for. The amount of combat options are a bit staggering at first. Thankfully, the 22 abilities we had access to were split into 2 sets, Frey's magic and Scylla's magic, and you could swap between them easily by pressing left or right on the D-pad. Additionally, to give you more time to plan each attack, you can set your gameplay options to make your ability swaps on the radial interface either slow down time, stop time entirely, or do nothing once you've become accustomed to the system and can knock out some nutty combinations with ease. So we didn't have all 100 plus magical abilities at our disposal, but the 22 abilities we did juggle were varied and interesting. This included 2 surge abilities, aka your super move, 6 main attacks, aka your go-to punchy or shooty moves, and 14 sub or support attacks, aka one-time use magic abilities that enter a cooldown period
this game
after
is
use. Frey's magic
pretty
included
big.
3 main attacks, burst shot, shield shot, or scatter shot, which are typical projectile abilities that send projectiles outward to shoot things from a distance. Of course, all these main abilities can be charged to shoot larger projectiles, but you're also left vulnerable during that time. The secondary attacks are support-based, so you'll use things like Bind to tie up opponents, Leech to summon poison curing plants, Screen to summon stones around you as a rock shield, Disperse and Implant to create plant turrets to auto-attack, or Prime to lay a magic trap that will blow up should someone step onto it.
My guess
surge
would be
ability,
like
Genesis, creates a massive spike of roots from the ground.
I think there'll be a lot of big things like put together, like you know, the 100 magic abilities are probably not all offensive. Like you would think, oh, what 100 plus magic abilities? Yeah, they're not all offensive. They're gonna be like a lot of support and agility, maybe buffs even in between.
Even Scylla's sub
And
abilities
probably
are incredibly powerful.
No, the offensive ones are probably also
pushing them
probably
back
limited.
and damaging them at the same time. Bombardier does the same, but triggers an explosion that does area of effect damage. And Fire Trap creates a lava bubble to burn away at anything stepping inside of it. There's also less in-your-face options here like Aegis, which I don't know how to say properly, that cancels out an enemy's attack or eliminates defense-reducing spells applied to Frey.
Maybe it's something you need for the boss
Crucible will
in the
engulf
boss
a
fight more like,
circular area
right?
in flames
So you
and
have to
allow
cancel
Frey to
the
do more
boss's
attack damage to
I
anything
guess
captured
boss's
within.
attack.
Combine that with the incredibly
Oh,
powerful,
super
say
even.
it with me, conflagration, which engulfs anything in front of you in a massive wave of fire, and you'll likely be walking away from most encounters victorious. Both Frey's and Scylla's magic also benefit from parkour abilities, offering additional options if airborne. As the parkour elements are separate, you can also use the Spider-Man web zip style ability to get up close and personal should you need to, or simply dodge to the left or right and avoid an attack. And all of this is combined with a combat rating that is constantly judging how well or poorly you've been doing
pretty
the entire time.
free
I
flowy.
will admit that I became obsessed with figuring out how to improve my score, as that letter D lingered far longer than I liked. With all these abilities, I'd love to see what a Frey S-tier combo looks like, hoping it would make even Dante from Devil May Cry blush. In addition to all the combat elements, I was surprised by the amount of gear you can add to Frey, because each item has several stats to bolster your attack, defense, or magic. Those items include cloaks, necklaces, and even what I assume are press-on nails that, yes, you can paint if you choose to do so. Cloaks have stats for attack, defense, and in this build, a purple or red magic rating buff, in addition to 3 random buffs on each piece of gear. Necklaces buff health and defense stats with that same purple or red rating the cloaks had, and seems to focus more on damage buffs.
They really want you to play a lot, huh?
The nails. This is where your spell buffs are located, and you'll see everything
in
from
your nails?
spell damage plus 5% here, or something more fun like killer blows generate
They're getting all out with magic,
huh?
On this game.
What Frey's going to look
what
like,
can you do to make her as badass as possible? It's like she's Dante.
Generate a shockwave on their death.
Dante is also the badass, can do almost everything. No one can beat his ass.
To finish off anything remaining. I can't wait to see what other passive options we'll be able to stat into later on. To put those skills to the test, they've littered the map with plenty to do. There are enemies you can hunt down for XP rewards,
you know, pretty
treasure chests to
not
unlock
as
new
cool.
gear, townspeople to save for a
Like
mana
symbols.
reward that will upgrade your abilities, monuments to strength that'll give you a stat increase and spawn something interesting to fight, and, oh boy, here's another tough word, Gaiuzal locations to scout that will reward new cloaks. And I think those are just a few of the items I happen to spot with my short amount of time in Forspoken. To find them, you can use Cuff's abilities like Scan that you can do by tapping up on the D-pad. Compass is also used by holding up
I really
should
hope
you want to be directed to
this
a specific
game has
location. And if you need some help
like
while you're
really,
out there,
really,
you can
really
tap
hard
down
bosses
on the D-pad to use a
that
healing
give
consumable, or hold
amazing
down outside of
cloak
combat
or something,
to set up a
or
camp
whatever
and get
ability.
some rest, or craft various
So it
items
rewards
like
you
those
for
healing
beating it,
drafts.
instead of, you know,
more than I'd like to admit.
like after
You
the
can also
end
do
game.
this
Oh yeah, here you
at
go,
one of
end
the
game. Here you can beat
hideaways
your
that will also allow you to unlock
the
new
strongest boss
abilities
in
with
the
mana
game.
you've
Yeah,
collected,
okay.
or
Why should I do
craft
this?
upgrade your cloaks, necklaces,
It's like
and
the game is
nails.
already done.
And the parkour abilities
usually,
aren't
you know,
just
I'm the
limited
kind of
to
person.
combat either. You can also very quickly get around the map with
As soon as the game is finished, I don't care too much about the game anymore. Because essentially, you know, I play the game for the story, and everything that comes before that, you know, make me prepare for the end game.
Mode, as I prefer faster frame rate over pretty
Unless, you know,
visuals,
the game has
I
like
did wanna
a
ask what some of the other graphical targets were. The Forspoken team told me that they're
game
targeting
afterwards,
a
you know,
maximum resolution of 2880 by
like
1620p
I guess
with a
post
frame
game
rate
story.
of 30 FPS for the ray tracing mode.
But usually it's like,
and a
you know,
maximum
not really a
resolution
thing.
of 2560 by 1440p at 60 frames per second for the performance mode. Having had the chance to swap between them both, there's an obvious difference in how the game feels and looks for both, as the demo was so focused on combat, I felt the faster frame rate was the way to go. That said, if visuals are your thing, they've clearly spent a lot of time working to make them the best looking they can be. My biggest worry remains the story, which I didn't experience much of, but from what I have seen, I am intrigued by it. A modern day Chronicles of Narnia with a heavy focus on pulling off bombastic combos? Yeah, I'm 100% in. Forspoken has not done many favors for itself in terms of marketing, but having played it, if all these elements can somehow come together in a cohesive manner, I think we're all in for a treat. I guess we'll find out when the game launches in 2023.
Since this game was like
on all things gaming, keep it right here at IGN.
You know, since this game was like the show off for UE5, of course would look good, right? So there was literally no point in no. There was no point in doing it that way, right?